I just want to hear from the crowd. What do you think when you hear Africa? Any volunteers?
Writers.
Writers? Anybody else?
Opportunity.
Opportunity?
Rivers and lakes.
Anybody else?
Resilience.
Resilience? Okay.
Buildings.
Buildings. Okay. Somebody who's not from Africa. What comes to your mind when you think of Africa? Anyone?
Culture.
Culture? Anybody else? Okay. I think this is time for Africa. I think it's time that we rewrite the African story. And I'm going to talk about the resulting culture of Africa and the opportunities that the young people, the UN and the government have for young people. So I'm not going to go through the findings because everybody has gone through all of them. But what I'll just say is that it's time for us to work together. I know my dad always tells me that our rich diversity and our unity is our collective strength. And so I will start by saying that the resulting cultural diversity expands choices, nurtures a variety of skills, human values, and worldviews, and provides wisdom for the past to inform the future. When we walk alone, we go faster. But when we work together, we go farther. So George Kim said that the darkest thing about Africa is not the African people, but it is all about our ignorance of Africa. Africa is the largest growing economy in the world. And of course, it's also the largest urbanizing continent in the world. Over the next decade, its GDP is expected to rise by an average of 6% a year. And thanks to the direct foreign investment that has gone from 15 billion in 2002 to 37 billion in 2006 and 46 billion in 2012. The most interesting thing about Africa is that Africa was known for poverty. And when you think of Africa, the mind or the picture that comes was a little, child holding a bowl asking for, food. But I'm glad to say that even the malaria deaths in some of the worst affected countries have declined by 30%, and the HIV infections have actually reduced by 74%. The life expectancy across Africa has increased by about 10%, and the child mortality rates in most African countries have reduced as well. So the African economy is actually booming. And actually, Africa is making a large and a big difference. The real income per person has increased by more than 30%. Thank you. Has increased for more than 30%, and whereas in the previous 20 years, it has shrunk by nearly 10%. Moreover, economic growth has translated into significant human development outcomes. Poverty rates are falling fast, and the key social indicators are improving even more rapidly. Between 1999 and the key social indicators are improving even more rapidly. Between 1999 and 2012, Africa's poverty rate fell from 58% to 43%, about 1% point per year. Despite war and diseases, Africans are now living longer than before, 55 years on average, which is 7 years more than the decade ago. The trend is set to continue. 10 years from now, the life expectancy is expected to reach 60 years, thanks to the sharp reductions in child mortality. In Kenya, the child mortality has declined by 30% since 2000, which is faster than the target under the Millennium Development Goals. Now, in Kenya, it is the world's largest producer and leading exporter of black tea. It is also ranked among the largest coffee producers in the world. Globally, Kenya has earned her position among the League of Nations as an attractive brand and one of the leading brands in Africa. Kenya was the first country in the world to launch the mobile money, M-Pesa, which allows users as a transfer of cash using mobile phones. Based upon its success in Kenya, M-Pesa has considered for a number of countries across the globe. Kenya is the only country that actually has 30% procurement for its young people. Kenya actually is the only government in the world that has all these opportunities, economic opportunities for its young people. Africa will be the new demographic powerhouse in the world. Half of the world's future population growth will be driven by Africa, not because of a higher fertility, but because of a longer life expectancy. There are currently 1.3 billion of young people in the world, so there is a young people's bulge in the world. By 2015, there will be 3 billion young people under the age of 35. 87.7% of this population of the young people live in the developing countries, and 75% of these young people are unemployed. In Kenya, over 78% of our population is under the age of 35 years. The success and the enterprise of Kenya lies in its young people. The majority who generate wealth and bake the national cake to stimulate economic development are the young people. Despite facing challenges of poverty, unemployment, social exclusion, insecurity, among others, young people comprise the strength, wealth, and the drivers of innovation in the world. They constitute a generation that will offer the greatest social, political, intellectual, scientific, technological transformation in the modern society today. They are recognized as agents of positive change globally, where we actually drive economy, and we need to create a platform in which young people's innovations are evidence-based, result-driven solutions can be exchanged. In the world today, we have South-South cooperation, and Africa is actually leading in this exchange of technologies and exchange of experts. So it is time for Africa. We must now then know that there cannot be development without peace, and there cannot be peace without dialogue and participation. So young people need to actually tap into these opportunities that Africa is offering for them. Levis asked me to talk about my story and talk about how I became the youth representative to the UN, and actually my role at the global market or the global stage. So in 2012, I think, maybe let me just start from high school. I was just this Kenyan young girl who used to go to all these opportunities that were there in high school. So I started from going to Girl Guide, and I started going for all these conferences. While I was at these conferences, I realized that Kenya and the African countries were not represented by the youth, but they were represented by older people. However, in countries like the EU countries and countries in Latin America, and some of the countries were being represented by young people. So there was a need for Africa to actually bring the young people forward to actually represent their governments. So when I came back home, I wrote a proposal, and I sent this proposal to the government, and I sent it to the UN. And as much as it was so difficult, finally, after lobbying and all that, in 2012, I was given an opportunity by the government to attend the Rio Plus 20. And during the Rio Plus 20, as you all know, it was the UN Conference on Sustainable Development and Climate. And in this conference, Kenya was pushing for the upgrade of UNEP. And as you all know, I think in the country they said that the resolution had failed because they were looking to actually upgrade it to an agency. So what happened as a youth representative is that I lobbied to governments and I lobbied to other youth representatives from the world to actually introduce an amendment, not just to update, but just to strengthen the resolution. So when I came back home, after it passed, the government actually recognized recognized the ability and actually the resource that young people have. So the most important thing is that this government actually recognizes young people. And I think I'm happy to see Honorable Sakaja here, who will obviously talk more on that. But as I finish, I always tell this story in, everywhere that I go. And it's a story about an American president who once called the scientists in his country, and he said, I want you to go out there and find out what does it take to go to the moon. And the scientists went out there and they came back and said, Mr. President, we have done all the research we can, and what you need to go to the moon, you just need the will to do it. And if you have the will, you can do it. So with that being said, I just want to tell you that thank you for having me, and yes, it is time for Africa. Thank you.